Let's do a little
4, 1.
Element 115, essentially non-existent.
3, 4.
And he told police he was able to time travel because aliens filled his body with, you guessed it, alcohol.
Not the beast!
See?
Boys!
That was a nice one. It was like a nice pop.
It was like a golf clap.
I actually, I learned how to do a very specific loud type of clapping at Angels Stadium in Anaheim.
May you please indulge us?
Seeing the Red Sox there, I was a spoiled young lad, and my family and I would travel to see baseball games, particularly the Red Sox play in other places. And in one trip, we were in Anaheim, where the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim play, and there was a man out in the stadium who was sitting near us. We were sitting in like the left field grandstand, and he was clapping in this way that if I were to do it now on the podcast, it would be way too loud. So I will not really do it. But the method would be to like make your hands very, very, very stiff, like very stiff, where like you cannot bend the fingers, and you clap so that there's a cup in the middle of your hand. And you're basically like pop it like really, really loud. And he was doing it at the game like so loud that it was echoing throughout the stadium, like this one man. And it was like so intense as he was rooting for the Angels. And I'm like 15, 16 or something, like Red Sox fan, really love baseball. And this guy is just like intimidating the shit out of me. So strong, leathery hands, like clap, clap, clap.
Yeah, especially when you're a kid, because that's like a god, right?
Yeah, and his friend was wearing a Spider-Man mask.
Oh.
Into it. I love that.
They were so into the Angels. Yeah.
I like that. I like those super fans. Those are the best.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, I like to think they have season tickets, and they're still going to this day. They sneak in during like COVID times.
Just running around the park by themselves.
Exactly.
Do you think they had to put like a noise gate when they started really televising all the things to keep that guy's clap?
Yeah, he keeps taking the audio.
I bet you could hear it on the broadcast. It's loud. It's so loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to the
Anyways,
Beastie Boys. No relation.
hi guys. Hello world.
Hello.
The other two, I guess, are rude motherfuckers, and they don't want to say hi to the rest of the.
And everything.
Is it JavaScript?
JavaScript.
That's the new.
Yeah.
That's the new C++.
Yeah.
It's what they're gonna code all the hot new video games on.
Oh heck yeah, dude! They're just gonna. It's just gonna be streaming me 24/7. Just me being me. It would be the worst stream ever.
Streaming memes.
Streamies.
Yeah.
Leaves a bowl full of hot pythons. Guys, you know what I was thinking about last night, and I don't want to like
What's that,
open
Mike?
up and dunk on deaf people immediately, you know, but
Okay, good opening.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
Good start.
Put it that way.
hearing is incredible.
Oh yeah, it's one of the best things you can do.
So I'm lying in bed last night,
Like Brian
Yeah.
Wilson did.
smiling pets. So I hear a mix of like my wife's breathing, the radiator whistle, and it was like all just on one side of my ear, and it sounded just like birds in a mall. You guys ever go to an indoor mall when
Yes.
like birds got in?
Yeah.
It's like super echoey.
Yeah, it was like almost trippy. You know, because I knew I could pick out what the individual sounds were, but the combination of two, and we have like an air filter like further over in the room, so the combination of all these things like brought me to that place, and it was super
Interesting.
wild. And I was
I imagine it
thinking
was
then,
just
like,
your wife like doing that old cartoon sleepy effect where it's like, yeah, when they do the whistling
Yeah,
when they
put a
breathe out.
feather over it, it'll just up and down.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feather. The
Yeah.
feather is such a nice
Or like, or for some reason the bubble, like I feel like the
Oh, yeah, the
Japanese
big
do it a lot. The
expanding
bubble.
Oh yeah. The
like,
sleep bubble
represents
of whatever the
sleeping.
hell that's supposed to be.
Oh.
Do we know where that derived from? Because it's like so specific, and you know what it is.
it's got to be an animation technique to exaggerate what was difficult to draw. You know,
Yeah.
like for cartoons, you would always like to, it's like how on a 2D drawing do you show the person sleeping? Well, you put Z's,
yeah.
and then that just becomes a symbol of what you're witnessing. And then the translation probably to animated. You know,
Well,
just
Mike,
pushed it
thanks
further.
for making that answer not fun. I was hoping for a fun response to that. You went the logical route, but okay, I'll take it.
Yeah, I was hoping to hear something about blowing bubbles in your sleep with all the accumulated spit.
Yeah, you don't know that? Back in the
He's back in-
1920s, when you slept, it was after the 1918 pandemic. One of the symptoms of the Spanish flu for survivors was like an accumulation of mucus. So when they
So you stuck
slept, they would actually blow bubbles, and like the
I heard
water
he's
was
back
so
in town.
dirty. Water was so dirty they had to add detergent. So then you'd actually have this kind of like natural effervescence. Well, it's unnatural, but most people
Gross.
walking around with it, and then they would blow bubbles and they slept.
I do that all the time during the winter when I'm just full of sludge and grossness. I get the bubbles.
Ooh, gross.
Good. The winter sludge
Yeah.
bringing you down.
Yeah, but
You ever
Gross.
so yeah, birds in malls. I miss malls, but I miss birds in malls. Because
I
whenever
don't
you
miss
would walk
malls.
into a mall and there would be fucking birds that aren't supposed to be there in the mall, there was like such an extra level of adventure.
Yeah.
You know, whatever
Did
like
you get-
video game you're going to EB Games to get, or you know, like
we used to
whatever
play a
you're on the
game. Whenever we were at the mall, we would play a game where we would just try to yell someone's name and see if we could get anyone's attention. So like we'd be up on the top of like the Natick collection or Natick Mall back in the day. And we'd just be like, Karen, Julie. And we'd see if anyone would look, and no one ever looked. It was dumb.
No one ever looked ever.
No, well, like people would be like, and just keep walking, but we never got like someone to respond to the name we yelled, I guess is what I meant to say.
That's classic.
But it was very fun. That we used to throw the old AOL CDs across. We played Frisbee with them. So like the gap in between on the second floor of the Natick Mall, we'd throw the CDs across to each other.
Not the store, the Gap, but like the gap.
The gap
Yeah.
the gap between the top floor and the bottom floor.
Right. Actually, coincidentally, it was from the Gap to the Banana Republic.
Yes. Fall into the gap.
Mind the gap.
Yeah, we weren't allowed at malls after a while.
You
Did
weren't
you
allowed
ever
to hang
jump a
out there
banister?
because like
No,
the security
we're-
guards kicked you out.
Yeah, we got yelled at and kicked out of the Natick Mall so many times that they just got sick of us.
Did you ever
They-
go
they
over the
took our
banister?
pictures.
I've always wanted to do it, but I was always too scared.
To jump off, like to the bottom floor?
But just to go on the other side of it.
Oh no, God, I'm not
And
that
like
much of a
hang
thrill.
there?
I'm not
Just
that
to
kind of
go
thrill
over
seeker.
it, so you're on the dangerous side.
Who do you think has done that?
I don't know.
I think Johnny
I was
Knoxville's
asking
done that.
if you guys had.
you
He's throwing CDs. Like he's a ninja. The next logical step, and parkour people do it.
Parkour people, yeah, stuntmen, aspiring
Yeah.
stunt people.
Yeah, Jackie Chan
but I
does
can't
it,
say
so
I've seen one
you
in a
know
hall.
I can
Yeah.
do it too.
Yeah, right.
No, I didn't do it, but maybe my
No, it
friends
was really
did.
funny the way you asked that question was like, well, I mean, have you done that? I was just like, you think like a lot of people have done that?
I'll tell you what, Mike.
Somehow.
I'm so paranoid to even walk close to the edge of the fucking banister that there's no way in hell that I would ever dream about going on the other side of it. So no, I've never done it. Thank you for
I used to
asking.
dream.
Are you scared of heights, Mitch? Would you consider yourself scared of heights?
Yeah, I don't do too well with heights. You know, I'm a strong believer that humanity was never supposed to get off the ground, and we were never supposed to go any higher than 10 feet.
So will you not fly ever?
No, I've been in planes and I've flown before. It's not my favorite thing in the world.
You've
I've
flown
been
a
in planes.
plane
I've
before?
never-
How did you fly?
Oh,
I've
no,
never
no.
taken off, but
Well-
I've been in a plane.
I never flew a plane, but I did kind of be a co-pilot once, sort of, kind of, if you really stretch the definition, because my uncle.
Theme parks don't count. Theme parks don't count.
No, it's not a theme park. My uncle on my mother's side used to fly. He used to have his own little plane that he used to fly.
The enforcer
And-
uncle?
No, this is a different guy.
Is
Different
this
guy.
The same uncle?
No, it's not the same uncle. This
I
is not
thought
the
it-
mafia uncle. This guy.
I was hoping it was him.
No, he's an uncle through marriage. So he's married to my aunt on my mother's side, and he used to have his own little plane. And make a long story short, in high school, my brother had to do a project. I have a brother who's 6 years older than me. He had to do a project for high school that was like a big thing where he had to go get a mentor and like do this whole big project. So he picked my uncle for flying planes, and I'm a little kid, so I'm with them.
Nice.
And yeah, I got to fly in like the co-pilot seat, and like I don't remember if I actually did anything while I was there, but it was kind of cool, like being in that co-pilot seat while he was flying the plane. Because it was like one of those small little. I'm not a plane guy, so feel
like a
free.
Cessna or something.
Yeah. I was about to say Cessna. Like, feel free to make fun of me because I don't know, but yeah, it was a lot of fun. So technically, I was a co-pilot once at one point in my life.
That's pretty
I'm
balling.
surprised that didn't affect your fear at all. You would think that, and if anything, that would inspire you to be like, oh, I like being in planes.
No, see, I'm not like afraid of being in planes. It's more the thing I don't like about planes is that they're maybe I just haven't rode in too many good ones, but they're always so rocky and bumpy and
Sure.
you know, like
Yeah, you got to get on the good ones.
yeah, like a few years ago, I went to Minneapolis on vacation to go see like the Mall of America and stuff, and I rode on not to throw them out under the bus, but I rode on Spirit Airlines. And,
oh, they're the worst.
Yeah. Oh my! It was the worst
that
flight.
airline sucks.
And it was a return trip too, so it was like a trip there, and a few days later I had a return flight. So first of all, the flight was off. The only thing that was great about the flight was there was this very nice lady who sat next to me who like chatted my ear off the entire time about nonsense that I didn't really care about.
that?
But it was fun because it kept my attention away from being bored out of my mind during the flight. Mm-hmm. So
yep.
But to really make the story juicy, why I hold a grudge against Spirit Airlines is because on the night that I'm supposed to make my return trip home, I guess the pilot just decided not to show up and they canceled my flight 2 hours before it happened. And I had to go and scramble to try to find a way back to Providence. And this was on the same trip where I had my credit card stolen. So it was a whole mess. Yeah, I could tell a whole story about that. I could tell a whole podcast episode about that trip, but I'm not going to right now. But yeah, so fuck Spirit Airlines.
So how'd you get
Never
home?
again.
Did you get a ride from the Mothman? Did he come pick you up and fly you back to Providence?
Oh, of course. You know, I just flew on his back. And by that, I assume you mean a Russian guy with a jetpack.
Yeah.
Mitch, you want
incredible
me to drop
stuff.
you at your house or up street?
Truly.
Oh, why are you so dusty, man?
So speaking of the Mothman, I got a fun little story to share with you guys to kind of segue into the topic of today's episode. So, we all know about now, since, you know, we did the episode and I assume they listened to it, we all know about the Mothman in Point Pleasant and the whole, like, you know, seeing the Mothman predicated the collapse of the bridge and in Point Pleasant and all that kind of stuff, and how the Mothman was this harbinger of disaster, right? So what if I told you that there is an eerily similar story that happened in the 1980s with Chernobyl? You ever hear of the Chernobyl chemical plant in the Ukraine?
No, what happened there? I have no idea what happened.
I'm going to tell you,
that.
you know. Listen, I'm not good at this whole segue thing, all right? Cut me some slack.
I didn't know
That's
Cher's
okay.
last name
I
was
appreciate it.
Noble.
Oh, that one was good. Yeah, so Chernobyl is a city located in northern Ukraine, and it's north of Kiev, and it's just south of the Russian border. So throughout most of the 1900s, Ukraine and, you know, by extension, Chernobyl was a part of the Soviet Union. So now the city was the site of the first nuclear power station built in Ukraine, and Chernobyl used to be home to about 14,000 people at its peak. It was one of the Soviet Union's most state-of-the-art nuclear facilities at Chernobyl. So, like, this was, you know, the Soviet Union is competing with the U.S. This was, like, top-of-the-line stuff that was all part of, like, the Cold War arms race type thing, right? So, on the 26th of April in 1986, officials at Chernobyl, they began doing a routine test of the backup cooling system of reactor number 4. So the way the nuclear power station works is it has multiple reactors, and this one had 4 of them. So reactor number 4 was the newest of the reactors, and that was built in 1983. So it's only 3 years after they built it. So the way it works is you have this reactor, and inside they have heated uranium that is making contact. So it's superheated uranium, and it's making contact with water to produce steam, which is how you generate the power to turn the turbines to create electricity. So very important to the operation of this reactor is what's called control rods. And what these rods do is that in order to like manage the heat level, there's these metal rods that come in and they separate the uranium from the water while you pump in more cooler water that's put in to kind of like dispense all the heat that's accumulated to prevent things from overheating. So what they were doing with this reactor was they were testing these control rods. So not long into the test, all of these control rods completely fail, like 3 minutes in. And the uranium begins to overheat like crazy at this exponential rate. And now a nuclear meltdown starts to happen. So at 1:23 a.m. in the morning, reactor number 4 at Chernobyl explodes. And it launches 8 tons of radioactive debris and smoke into the atmosphere. So the amount of radioactive material produced by that explosion is thought to be equivalent to 4 atomic bombs that were dropped on Hiroshima. So that's big. It's a big explosion. So within hours, the evacuation, rescue, and emergency response begins. There's about 115,000 people that were within the city of Chernobyl and also surrounding cities and areas within a 30-mile radius that had to be evacuated. So over the next 15 days, the Soviet military sent in about 500,000 personnel to evac the area, conduct rescue operations, and also fight this massive nuclear fire that's raging in Reactor 4. So out of the first responders of the event, a total of 31 people lost their lives due to the effects of the explosion, and that also includes excessive radiation poisoning from just being in such close proximity to the disaster. And then a further 50 of them die within the next few months from prolonged exposure to, radiation poisoning and all that kind of stuff. So,
brutal.
Yeah. So the fire that's inside that reactor goes on now for another 15 days before they're finally able to put that thing out. So what they end up doing is they end up building like this big concrete sarcophagus. It's like a big concrete shell that they build over Reactor 4 in an attempt to contain as much radiation as possible. And because of its vital role that the Chernobyl plant had in providing energy to many of the cities in Ukraine, they had no choice but to keep reactors 1, 2, and 3 online and operating until the year 2000.
What?
Yeah.
What?
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so there was no other way because it was so vital to the infrastructure of that area that they had no choice. Even though Reactor 4 exploded, they had to salvage it as much as possible. So today...
Who the fuck's in there running it?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Bunch of crazy Russians.
Yeah, there were people inside running Chernobyl all the way up until 2000 as an actual nuclear
Are
plant.
they dying every month?
Well, no, because they contain the radiation, right, Mitch? That shell contains.
So much of it seeped out. I'm gonna get to that. So much of it seeped out that like the entire area is contaminated. But most of the like radiation that would kill you instantly is like contained, right? It's all in that sarcophagus that they built. But and there's people whose job it is to monitor the radiation levels inside of that sarcophagus too. So they had people there working it as a power plant all the way up until the year 2000. So the Chernobyl meltdown is considered the worst nuclear disaster in history to this day.
So far.
Yes, so far. Knock on wood.
So far, yeah.
Knock on wood. Hopefully nothing worse than that ever happens. But you never know. So today, though, you can go to Chernobyl and you can actually explore Chernobyl for short periods of time as a tourist attraction. So it's kind of
But if
developed.
you want to get a job there, you could work 40 hours a week.
Well, you laugh, but it has somewhat of a creepy reputation, because here's the thing. So Chernobyl is a ghost town now, or, like a ghost city, technically, right? Because the majority of the 14,000 residents never returned. So most of the city is completely abandoned. However, there is still a population there that of like 600 people, and there's like a general store, and there's a hotel that you can stay at.
Do all those people mostly work at the power plant? Like, are they only living in that area to help, work for the power? So that
I'm not entirely sure of, but I'm sure that part of the reason why those facilities are, these places are operating is probably to support the team of scientists that still go to Chernobyl and work at it to this day, right?
Wow.
So, however, a lot of the buildings are completely abandoned, and they've been like reclaimed by nature. So there's like all sorts of like plant life that grows inside of these buildings and like on them.
It looks very like Last of Us.
Yes,
like
exactly.
that urban decay.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's exactly that. Like if you've ever seen like any of those science fiction movies where like the world ends and nature reclaims things, like Last Man on Earth or I Am Legend, that type of shit, right? So there's even like wild animals that live inside some of these buildings, like packs of wolves and shit. So now here's where it starts.
Radiated wolves.
Yeah, here's where it starts to get creepy, right? So there's rumors about Chernobyl being haunted. So there's a lot of nuclear specialists who check the radiation levels at Chernobyl to this day, and their job is to assess the damage and weathering on the concrete structure that's covering reactor 4, because if that leaks out, that's no bueno. So Chernobyl has always kind of had a bit of a dark history, right? It's an old city. Chernobyl actually dates back to at least the 12th century, and it's always been embroiled in like war and conflict. It's been the subject of attacks and massacres, such as when the Mongols invaded Russia in the Middle Ages. It's been part of wars between Lithuania and Poland and the native Cossacks that lived there. So in the 1920s, during the Bolshevik Revolution and the Civil War in Russia and Ukraine, Chernobyl was a strategic location that the Soviets captured, and then they massacred the city. And the city suffered like tons of mass killings under Stalin and all that. And then to make matters even worse, in the 1941, during World War II, it gets captured by the Nazis, and then the Jewish population of Chernobyl gets sentenced to the concentration camp. So Chernobyl has always had this dark, creepy history that, it's always been it's sort of like it reminds me of what David Paulides once said about like some places just seem to have like a dark connotation to them where these things happen, where you'll have like mountains that's named like Devil's Mountain that people go missing in. So like Chernobyl to me seems to be like one of these places that just has always had bad stuff happen to it, and it kind of sucks. Here's a ghost encounter from Chernobyl that I found. So this is from 1997 from a scientist named Andrei Karukov. And in his own words, he says, "I arrived at the abandoned power station at about 7:30 a.m. I proceeded directly to the reactor 4 sarcophagus where the explosion took place. I could not enter due to the radiation. I stood by the entrance taking radiation and Roentgen readings. I know no one could be inside the old reactor core, but I could very distinctly hear the sound of someone screaming for help, shouting that there was a fire inside. I ran upstairs to tell someone, but they said that when I entered the reactor control room, I was the first person to open that door in 3 years, and the only way to get inside the old reactor is through the doors I came in through. If someone had gone inside the reactor when I was not looking, they would have tripped an alarm that goes off when the reactor door is mechanically opened. The reactor door requires a password and a handprint, yet someone or something was inside. Later that evening, as we were eating dinner outside the building by the river next to the plant, a floodlight turned on in the room of the installation. There was no way anyone could be inside, as we figured there was a power surge or something. Then, just as my colleague said that the light turned off. Spooky, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
this brings me to, I had to give you that backstory for this story to kind of have the impact. I'm going to talk to you now about the Blackbird of Chernobyl. So, Chernobyl has become a pretty famous event, right? Especially for the role it played in the Soviet Union's collapse and also all the global efforts to monitor the site since then. So,
and the HBO show.
Yep, and the
too.
HBO show definitely has made it even more well known, right?
Which that show, can we talk about how awesome that show was? It was pretty bleak and well done, I gotta say. If anyone hasn't seen it yet, it's worth a watch. But just be prepared to be very depressed because it's a very downer of a show. Sorry, go ahead, Mitch.
No, it's all right. So, according to some people, the events that befell Chernobyl were forewarned. So, beginning in April of 1986, the people in and around Chernobyl nuclear power plant began to experience a series of strange events revolving around sightings of a mysterious creature described as a large, dark, and mutated man with gigantic wings and piercing red eyes. People affected.
What's the time difference between this and Point Pleasant? Between the Chernobyl event and Point Pleasant?
It's like a decade, right?
A little more than it's after. So about, let's see, Point Pleasant was what, 1967,
70,
right?
Oh yeah, 67. Yeah.
So this is 1986. So
20 years.
a little less than 20 years.
It's after.
So people affected by seeing this creature experienced horrific nightmares, threatening phone calls, and had first-hand encounters with the winged beast, which became known as the Blackbird of Chernobyl. In the days...
I just imagine it was Putin doing all this.
Putin in a wingsuit.
Putin dressed in a feather suit.
Back in his KGB days.
Yeah, calling people,
Yeah.
doing judo to anyone who questions him.
So, in the days preceding the tragic meltdown, 4 Chernobyl employees reported seeing what they claimed was a large, dark, headless man with gigantic wings and fire-red eyes. So
Damn.
some people had been having horrifying nightmares, while others received threatening phone calls. According to accounts, some of these employees even mentioned their bizarre experiences to their superiors at the facility. But without evidence of anything clear-cut of what, they might be seeing, there was pretty much very little all these officials could do. So it was definitely the KGB. So reports of these strange happenings continued to increase until the morning of April 26th, 1986, when at 1:23 a.m. Reactor 4 of Chernobyl, suffers this catastrophic steam explosion that I told you guys about. It results in this fire, and it causes a bunch of additional explosions followed by the nuclear meltdown. So following the meltdown and subsequent explosions and fires, Soviet helicopters get dispatched to the scene, and they're equipped with special firefighting gear. These helicopters circle the plant, dropping clay, sand, lead, and other extinguishing chemicals into the reactor onto the burning facility to try to put it out. So most of the fire is put out, and then by 5 a.m., when the fire that's in Reactor 4 continues to blaze for several hours, so the firefighters who responded were unaware of the nature of the fire, and they assumed that was simply a electrical fire. And they received massive overdoses of radiation, leading to many of their deaths, including a Lieutenant Vladimir Pravik, who died on May 9th, 1986. So, the workers who survived the initial blast and fire that would later die of radiation poisoning claim to have witnessed what has been described as a large, black, bird-like creature with a 20-foot wingspan gliding through the plumes of smoke coming out of the reactor. So no further sightings of the Blackbird of Chernobyl were reported after the Chernobyl disaster, leaving researchers to speculate just what the workers of the haunted plant may have seen leading up to the disaster. So the most commonly accepted theory suggests that the Blackbird of Chernobyl may have been, in fact, the same creature spotted in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, leading up to the collapse of the Silver Bridge on December 15th, 1967. investigators have suggested that the appearance of the creature is an omen of disasters and death that come in an area in which it shows itself. So the physical description of the Blackbird of Chernobyl and Mothman, the creature sighted in West Virginia, are very similar, and the reports of nightmares and threatening phone calls leading up to the disasters are shared in both cases. Now, there's a second, less accepted theory, which suggests that the Blackbird of Chernobyl was nothing more than the misidentification of the black stork, which is an endangered species endemic to southern Eurasia. So a black stork stands nearly 3 feet tall and has a wingspan of nearly 6 feet. This theory, however, fails to take into account the menacing phone calls and the disturbing nightmares. Also,
birds can't call people.
Yeah, at least not to my knowledge, right? Maybe on Sesame Street they can, but I mean, that's not real life. So, also the physical...
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, the physical description given by the majority of witnesses who actually saw the Blackbird of Chernobyl does not in any way match the physical appearance of the black stork. So, here's the fun thing about this story is, the resemblance between Blackbird of Chernobyl and Mothman are pretty uncanny, right? So, if we were to take this story as true, in the sense that what was recorded was what was reported, it's unlikely that Soviet personnel would be familiar enough with Mothman in Point Pleasant, assuming, of course, it wasn't the Russians behind it in the first place. So, it's not like they would be familiar with Mothman to, like, hoax a Mothman thing over Chernobyl, right?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also the fact that all the witnesses of this Blackbird ended up dying to radiation poisoning, so... while that's a sad event, it means their story can never really be verified. Assuming, of course, that these eyewitnesses existed, because there exists no publications, news reports, or anything of a similar nature about the Blackbird before the mid-2000s, and that's going by things in English, things in Russian, things in any other language. So, research done by cryptozoologists have led them to believe that the Blackbird of Chernobyl is, in fact, an urban legend inspired by the Mothman. So
Interesting.
So the earliest stories on the web date back to around 2005. And what's actually interesting about this to me is that, the usual suspects of the era of making up stories like this, such as like Something Awful forums or 4chan or spam email chains or any of that, they don't seem to be the propagators of it. So no one even knows where this story like came from. No one knows its earliest form, right? So the author is completely unknown. However, it does seem very likely that the story was inspired by a line in the 2002 movie The Mothman Prophecies.
Back to that movie. Oh,
Which
my
line would that
goodness.
be?
So when Richard Gere, he's playing John Klein, right? He meets this paranormal expert, Alexander Leak, and they talk about the strange events in Point Pleasant. Leak says, and I quote, "In ancient cultures, the moth represents a form of the psyche, or the soul immortally trapped in the hellish death realms." He then goes on to say, Mothman, well, that's what the Ukrainians called him. Rough translation, of course. There were 100 sightings in Chernobyl the year the nuclear pump went down. Galveston, 1969, just before the hurricane. They saw it, but seeing isn't always believing. So, according to, my boy Loren Coleman, famed cryptozoologist.
I went to high school with a Lauren Coleman. Weird.
He was a consultant.
What if it's the same person?
So, Loren Coleman was a consultant on the Mothman Prophecies film, and he said that the line in the movie is probably the result of the Blackbird story, because according to Coleman, there exists no records of Mothman outside of Point Pleasant.
So you're telling me this is some sort of like circular conspiracy?
Yeah.
I think so.
That like leads back to itself?
Yeah, all of the lines are connected, like all the dots are connected to form a circle, right?
So, but Chernobyl happened before the movie came out, right?
Yes.
Yeah, that was 86.
Yep. Okay. And what he says is that when they were writing that line for the movie, Because remember, the whole movie is based on this idea that, the Point Pleasant thing is happening right now in the present instead of in the past.
Sure.
Right? So they had to come up
terrible.
with, so it's not like they could cite Point Pleasant as like, oh, the Mothman was seen before. So they had to come up with some other way to like, associate it with disasters. So they picked the most famous disaster
That's wild.
in recent history.
Another reason why that movie is garbage.
Garbage. So it's so bad.
So like,
sucks.
the clincher here, that should be pretty obvious of why Mothman doesn't come from Chernobyl, is because the Mothman name just doesn't, it's not Ukrainian. Its origin is, we even talked about it. It's from a newspaper in Point Pleasant, where they wanted to call it Batman because it's described to look more like a bat, but they couldn't.
Right, but they
Because otherwise...
Well, they got
Mothman.
sued by DC Comics.
Exactly.
So they couldn't use Batman.
Right? So...
Now, do we know, does radiation cause like hallucinations? Like maybe these people were seeing it because they were poisoned, like it was creating
so it's
hallucinations.
It's certainly possible, Jarvis, but the fact is that like there's no record of even these witnesses reporting anything before 200005, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
it's like
that's
30
super
years.
sketch.
Yeah.
I have an idea.
Super sketch.
You guys want to hear the Beastie Boys theory?
Sure.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So, Mitch's wonderful research in the Mothman episode lays a pretty solid case of there possibly being KGB tests of jetpack technology in Point Pleasant, which led to these sightings, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all agree that was pretty, like, it's just as possible as there being a moth creature. Right?
Absolutely.
Sure.
So here's my next step of that is the KGB finishes their tasks, right? And then they return to the motherland. John Keel publishes this book, 1975, The Mothman Prophecies, about these events. The book eventually makes its way into Soviet Russia, into the hands of one of the operators of that jetpack. And in a vodka-fueled fury at him reading that, like, oh, this was compromised mission, like somebody probably dropped the book on his desk, was just like, oh, so much for you being big secret man, huh? And he reads the book and he's like, fucking moth, you think I'm fucking moth? And he just pulls out his suit and he just starts drinking. For weeks he's drinking. He sees people on the street, they see him in the jetpack outfit and he's like, you think I'm fucking moth? And so he's like, they're scared, right? Because they're seeing this headless beast with red eyes.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, he's shit-faced flying around Chernobyl because he doesn't want to fly. He can't fly in Russia, so he's gonna go over the border into Chernobyl.
Yeah.
And this is the only place where he's like, they don't give a fuck. They're like, oh, let Yorgi do. He did his time. Let him do his thing. And he's following these people home. Now he's calling them up on the phone and be like, did I look like a fucking moth to you flying around? Huh?
Just completely
Fucking
blackout,
moth."
belligerent
Dude, he's
drunk
flipping
doing
out,
this.
right? So next thing, this meltdown happens, and he's finally just fucking had it. He's been drinking every night. He's flipping out. He's calling the neighbors. He's threatening them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody's watching. The eyes are all on this meltdown. So he's like, I'm going to fly over those fucking clouds, and then no one will be able to deny me. I should have the book. Richard Gere should play me. Right?
Yeah.
Flies over the cloud, dies. Because he gets a super dose of radiation.
That's it? That's
And
it?
then
That's
he
where your story
lands
ends?
then that's it. No one sees him again because he hyper drunk. He's drunk. He's in the jetpack. He flies over the clouds trying to get everyone to look, but there's a nuclear fire. So no one's looking. Like a couple people maybe see and be like, "Oh shit!" There's. Then he's dead.
It's a good theory.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lean towards that happening. I actually
That's
that's way more entertaining than the debunked theories we're talking about.
Right.
But that's wild.
Yeah.
What you didn't talk about was I know it's not really like a cryptid thing, but the elephant's foot. You never brought up the elephant's foot in the in your Chernobyl story, Mitch. Have you read about that?
No, I've never heard about this.
So if you Google elephant's foot, it's the first thing that comes up. It's actually it's a large mass of corium and other materials that formed underneath Chernobyl.
Oh,
it basically looks like an elephant's foot.
Oh, that's the name.
And it's just a big ball of radiation spewing corium. And apparently
How do they
it's
see it?
because I think do they have cameras inside there or something? I forget whether there is a photo of it from 1996. Somebody went in there and took a photo. It is losing its radiation though, just because of the decay of corium. I don't know what the half-life is off the top of my head, but it's some element, some radioactive element.
Corium Matthews from the TV show?
Yes.
Yeah, Corium Matthews. Corium Matthews.
Mr. Matthews.
From Boehm Eats World.
Oh my god. So let me there's a little thing on the composition here. Let me just read it real quick. It says elephant's foot is composed primarily of silicon dioxide with traces of uranium, titanium, zirconium, magnesium, and graphite. The mass is largely homogeneous. Am I pronouncing that correct?
Homogeneous. Homogeneous.
Homogeneous. Thank you, Mitch, because I'll butcher that.
That's all right.
Though the depolymerized silicate glass contains occasional crystalline grains of zircon. These grains of zircon are not elongated, suggesting a moderate blah, 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 blah. So it says the mass is quite dense and unyielding to a drill mounted on a remote-controlled trolley, but able to be damaged by a Kalashnikov rifle, which is an AK-47, using armor-piercing rounds. By June 1998, the outer layers had started turning to dust, and the mass had started to crack.
Ooh.
So that's pretty wild. They couldn't drill through it, but they could shoot armor-piercing rounds through it. That's kind of that's a typical Russian thing to do, right?
Yeah.
Just fire an AK off at it.
They gave up on trolley drill technology decades ago. Full Kalashnikov research. But the idea is that Mothman and then this Blackbird were supposed to be harbingers of bad things to come.
Yeah.
And that was kind of our idea for this episode. And then looking this stuff up, it's like there's neat individual stories, but I think, Lorraine or whoever came up with the idea of these things being harbingers and harbingers being a group is kind of bullshitty.
Yeah.
It
seems like it's a way for people to kind of justify a traumatic event.
Yeah, like
that's kind of what it seems like. Yeah, after the fact,
like Universal Monsters, like the Harbinger. We got your Mothman. We got your Blackbird.
Get Aquaman in there too for some reason.
It's like a stretch.
People are so self-serving. They have to create this sort of there was a bird there that said you're supposed to be careful, and you weren't. So now you're dead.
Yeah.
And
are you telling me that you saw the Mothman and didn't shut down the nuclear power facility?
How dare you?
Unbelievable! Like
That's on you.
You gotta be out of your mind to actually look the Mothman in his red eyes and not shut down the power plant.
Hindsight's 2020, boys.
Yeah, and it's like it could be that's what it is, and people are just trying to piece together, and it's like, because I saw that black cat cross my path. But that's more. Yeah. For me, those were always superstitious things. Yeah. Right, or even like it was a bad omen. But Harbinger for me was pretty new, and there doesn't seem like there's too much to it. From at least the research that we've been doing over the past couple
now Harbingers of Death, like that term, does that come from like some version of the Bible? Is that where that originally? Yeah, it's badass. Is that like a 4 horsemen of the apocalypse type of thing? Like, wasn't one of the 4 horsemen like a harbinger? I don't know. I am not religious.
But I've never seen like a formal harbinger thing.
Yeah.
Like, this is the harbinger. It's just like a descriptive word used to mean someone or something that's bringing forth bad omens.
Sort of like a
Couldn't
herald.
the Grim Reaper? The Grim Reaper could be considered
that should be
harbinger, yeah.
But he doesn't
or the
come
Silver
up.
Surfer.
Yeah.
No, he was the herald.
Yeah, he was a herald, but
Yeah.
he would go to the planets before
Yeah,
Galactus
herald
would even.
announces.
Yeah.
Harbinger.
Oh, he announced
brings.
it. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. But so then
'cause I
Galactus is
looked
the
that up.
harbinger. You're saying Galactus is the harbinger,
Galactus
and
was
Silver
the
Surfer.
Doom.
Yeah, he comes and just devours. Okay, so Silver Surfer's the herald. That's right. They
what
used to
I'm
call
saying.
him the herald. Yeah.
There's no real harbinger thing. There's no
Yeah, yeah.
harbinger archetype from
Yeah,
all
it's a
the
very-
shit that I looked up.
It's a very
Now, there's-
murky term.
There's this loosely like Mothman was brought into it. I looked up a couple things like black-eyed children, which is like that in itself is a neat paranormal phenomenon.
Right. Not the black-eyed peas.
Not the black-eyed
Yeah,
peas.
Way different. Although Fergie is a part of these children
Part
too.
of both. She's part of
Yeah,
both.
she's part of both. It's her thing. It's like in her contract or something. I heard.
She's got to maintain time with both.
So are the black-eyed kids? Are they like kind of what the what's it? Children of the Corn? Was that what that was kind of based? No, they have red eyes, right? They had like Mothman eyes. I'm trying to remember.
Or like white eyes.
Yeah, they had weird eyes too. I don't know if that's like the same type of thing as the black-eyed children, but
Yeah,
or are these
I
just
don't think
children
so.
that just
So-
have been abused and have black eyes from being hit?
All right.
What? the
I didn't.
fuck?
In all the time I spent looking and reading about that never connected. So kudos to you.
Thank you for listening to
Pull
the
that
final
up.
episode of
Yeah.
Beastie Boys.
It's been fun. Thanks, guys. No, you didn't let me finish. It's them getting hit in the eye with baseballs. That's what it was.
Oh,
It's like,
okay.
it's like a real Rugrats, a real Sandlot.
Yeah,
vibe.
yeah. Ooh, good reference.
The black-eyed kids that I'm talking about that I looked up is a phenomenon that I guess didn't really show up until 1996.
Okay.
But the idea is they've been around forever. And the idea, the story behind the phenomenon is like you'll be at your house making dinner or whatever, just hanging out, and then there'll be this knocking that starts at the door. And like incessant, like little asshole, little shithead knocking until you go answer the door. And then the descriptor is usually there's 1 to 3 kids that will be standing at your door. You'll get like a creepy feeling. They're all kind of plain clothed. They're usually looking down at their feet at first. And like, it might have been different decades ago. It probably was. But for me, like, any kid knocking at the door, I don't even want to answer to begin with. So right there, even if it's
you're
a
not
neighbor
high enough to
looking for
look through
help.
the eye hole, I'm not listening.
It's like
I'm
call
not
your
opening the door.
parents, you know. So you go to the door, and there's 1 to 3 kids will be standing there. They're usually between like I guess 6 on the low end and 16 at the highest. But tween is the usual description. And like for me, a 15, 16-year-old, that's not like a black-eyed kid anymore. That's like a black-eyed teen.
Yeah, it's like a
just
dickhead.
goth.
A
She's
goth.
like a goth.
Yeah, exactly. With his hymn shirt on.
Not that creepy. You know?
Right.
But the kids, so very common is for them to creep you out immediately. And there's one story I found of this lady who had gone through hypnotherapy to like recover from an addiction or something. And she described her experience with the black-eyed kid as being very similar to the feeling that she would get as the hypnosis kicked in. So the idea is like these kids are kind of putting forth some kind of weird vibe field, maybe trying to like hypnotize them. Their eyes completely are described as black.
So
And
not
then,
just the pupils. This is like the white
This is
parts
the
included.
sclera, the iris, everything, just
Gotcha.
completely black, full blacked out.
Oh, that's like Yolandi from
it's-
Diane
It's
Ward.
creepy, and then like they all have pale skin, and the skin
Yeah.
doesn't really look like it fits right sometimes.
Does this look any better? How's this? More sugar.
It's described as smelling, maybe like a sulfur or like a rotting flesh.
Ooh.
Because of the black eyes and the pale skin and the weird like child bodies, they've been compared to gray aliens. Some people said that they're even possibly hybrid.
I like you describing it as a weird child body. I don't know why that descriptor
weird.
is. It's kind of funny. Just a
what
weird
the-
little kid body.
No one has ever Yeah, you shouldn't be allowed to say those words.
Well, this
Yeah,
is
they
the
might put you
last
on a list
episode,
for
so
that,
get
dude.
it all out. Get it all out.
Gotta get it out.
Maybe they've like skinned abducted kids, and now the aliens or the Greys are putting on the skin, like Edgar suit, like that. type of
Skinwalkers.
idea. And they knock on the
maybe.
door. You go to the door. It's all possible.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
You go to the door, and they will ask you like, "Can we come in?" or "Can I come in?" There was one case. I think the guy was like a deputy from Texas or some shit, and he had this dog that he had raised since it was a puppy. It was like 4 or 5 years old. This big like bulldog, real mean, tough, and the dog is barking, flipping out as this guy's unloading his groceries. And next to his stairs, there's this kid that's just standing there. And the dog's yelling louder and louder, and then finally the dog comes running around the corner. It gets towards the door and then like stops itself, gets super freaked out, and then runs away in the other direction. And the guy says the dog's never been the same since. And the
Dog
kid
hasn't been the same since.
No, the dog like changed completely because it was like a guard dog, and then it was like going near the black-eyed kid caused the dog to be so traumatized that it was now like a completely different dog and like super fearful, whereas before it was ready to fight. Yeah. And then the kid was like, is it food time or something like that, and wanted to be invited in to eat. And then another common thing with the black-eyed kid phenomenon is you'll turn your head and then they'll be gone. Any cases
Very
where
Batman.
the people have come into contact with the kids, they've gotten like severely ill, and this is where the harbinger connection comes in, because bad things will happen after you run in. Whereas I'm like, just to having a run-in alone is the bad thing.
Yeah.
You know, anything else shitty that happens is a coincidence, but that's creepy. It sucks if like this kid genuinely wants help, and now you're gonna be like, get away. You know, he has like some weird eye bleeding syndrome, or he's blind. You know,
I just imagine a
you're
full
just so
adult just
scared.
stiff arming the kid out of the way. Out of my
Yeah,
doorway.
you just open it. You want to Spartan kick this kid off your front stairs. You know?
Give him a boot to the chest.
But the idea is like after you have this encounter, bad things will happen. It's a bad omen for the next X amount of days. Most of the stuff that I read was by this dude. I think his name's David Weatherly. He's got at least one revised book that he wrote a while ago. I listened to a few interviews with him. But these are all like completely anecdotal. And even then, there's no formal research unless this guy managed to track down someone. And the story that's propagated is like, these kids have always been around. So if they're Amish kids, or, you know, they come to your village back in the day, whatever it is that's causing this phenomenon. But the only printed reference that we can find to this, whether they were called something else, is like, that's where it gets tough, especially in like the older histories. Because if they called this like David's Boys, you know, and it was a well-known phenomenon, unless you're looking for David's Boys in print, you're never going to see any of these stories. It looks like this just came up 1996. There was a Texas reporter, Brian Bethel, and he wrote ghost-related stories on a mailing list. And 2 of the alleged encounters were with these black-eyed children. So he very well could have been the first person to start this, or maybe the first person that put it down in paper. But again, them being like harbingers, like, oh shit, there's a big black bird and a bunch of black-eyed kids in town. We better shutter the windows. You know, that didn't do anything for me. The other thing that was in the umbrella of harbingers that I looked up were banshees, which
Yes.
I knew by name because of the X-Men that yelled.
Yeah. Same here. Hey, do you guys ever have the action figure that they made in the 90s where he had a whistle on his back?
Yep,
Yes.
I had
You
that.
blow into it?
Yup.
Yeah, that
And
thing
like
was sick.
the plastic polymer wigs.
Yep.
between
Yeah, under his arms.
yeah.
Yeah, I remember breaking that immediately. But the whistle, annoyed the shit out of my sister for a long
favorite
time with that.
was Iceman, that came in the I think it was from the same line, and it came in the shell slide that you could fill with water
and then
put
freeze
it in
it.
the freezer.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the connective glue for all his body parts couldn't withstand the cold. So you could only get the slide once or twice, and then the figure's arm would start falling out.
Yeah,
The
I remember
shoulders.
that.
I went through like 2 of those because he was my favorite character, and the thing just kept breaking every time I would freeze it. But it was a neat
Toys.
So Banshee, I learned that the X-Men didn't give me all the right information, surprisingly.
Surprise,
You don't
surprise.
say.
That sucks. That sucks to hear.
I relied so much on pop culture to provide my education, and it was doing me so good for so long. And then
Are you telling me real life Wolverines don't have like the claws coming out of their hands and don't have berserker rage? You telling me that X-Men lied to me my
Well,
whole
no,
childhood?
I think that part's actually accurate because Wolverines are quite
Wolverines have
ferocious.
claws.
Do they have berserker mode too? Because that would actually
I'm
be pretty
pretty
sweet.
sure they do.
They live forever.
I think they have that reputation.
They also went through the Project X or Weapon X experiment too.
That has to exist. Someone has to have drawn that.
Yeah.
Like an actual Wolverine with like a little VR headset.
Or just a Wolverine dressed in Wolverine's outfit, the blue and yellow one, the original from the 90s.
Yeah.
Someone draw that, please.
It's got to be. That has to be out there.
Yeah.
So Banshee, and I'm not going to even try the old Irish or the Gaelic pronunciation.
I would love to hear you try to pronounce that.
Banshee. That's not even right.
No, because they have like weird like and like
She, or Sidhe, is actually a classification of fairy. And Banshee,
Irish love fairies.
Woman of the Fairy Mound. So in the X-Men, when they were calling for that flying backup, they'd be all like, "Hey, woman of the Fairy Mound, come yell at these people."
Unbelievable.
But that's what it is. That's where the term comes from.
It makes
And
sense
then
because I mean
the,
Ireland has that huge fairy. Like their whole history is built around like
fairy
fairies
culture.
living in the
and they have
marshes
all
and
the
shit.
the big mounds.
The
old-
fairy
I forget
mounds
what
and the trees and shit.
the large. I forget. There's a term for large geographical distortions that cultures have made. That like what is it? Stonehenge.
Yep.
And like all the big burial mounds. There's a where, or when they draw the big pictographs on the side of a hill. There's like a term for all that stuff. So yeah, that's what this was. And then the idea behind it was
Fairy
this
forts.
fairy woman that would go ahead.
Fairy forts. Is that the word you're looking for? Because that's the I was googling. It just says that's the remains of the stone circles, ring forts, and hill forts
That's what they call it.
in Ireland. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's fine.
I was trying to find
Because
that
I
word
didn't know
for
it. This stuff's interesting to me. Like I knew about the she from Irish folklore and mythology, which I'm very into, but I never made the connection to banshee being the same thing. And the idea of a banshee was this wailing woman.
Yeah.
So it was usually foretelling death because the woman would be seen washing the armor of someone who was going to die in battle. Which for me, that was like an Irish woman back in the day. If she's cleaning her husband or her lover's armor that's going into battle, it's like odds are, yeah, that dude's gonna die. And if she's aware of the situation, she's gonna be screaming her head off. You know, because what a suck ass situation is like. Now I got to get this guy's shield all polished up, who's gonna go give his life for some asshole that tried to have sex with me on our wedding night. You know, that like lives in the castle up on the hill. You know, like so that is like such a foundation in reality. It doesn't have to be a fairy from another dimension that's coming across to warn you. But I can see how the story grew from that, just in this grieving pre-widows. Nightly ritual.
But so how does the because I mean banshees are known for their wailing too. Does that have any?
Yeah, you scream. She's like, oh,
She's screaming for the man. Gotcha.
For the person that's gonna die or that has died. You know, it's any mourning woman's wife, and there was even some cases. So that idea evolved into, I don't know what you'd call it, but like elitism on some degree, because true banshees would only appear for people with O or Mac in their last name. So like the true Irish, the more Irish than Irish, the pure Irish that still had a connection to the fairy world, you know, before all the Danes and the fucking English came
Savages.
in and muddied the water, you know. So you're your husband's gonna die tomorrow. Well, it's not gonna be a banshee because his last name isn't McDougal, you know. And there was even cases I read about of families paying professional banshees. So you would hire a whaler, you know, like it was North Korea and the
Like a member of Bob
Supreme
Marley's band?
King just died.
A whaler?
Oh,
Like, were they the same thing, or is that different?
Marley in the way, yeah, it might have been. It might have been him and all his Irish ladies.
No banshee, no cry.
No, nobody, no crime. Yeah, so like that.
Sorry, I got knocked you off the rails on that. I'm bad
it's
today.
fine.
I'm sorry.
Who needs rails? Who needs rails when you have friends?
You can you can always rail your friends
no,
too,
John's
guys.
gonna puke everywhere. Oh. I'm gonna hire you a banshee, baby.
Disgusting.
I'm gonna hire you a banshee to wail. But that, okay, that's a harbinger. You could see that a crying woman could be bad news.
Yeah.
You fucking said
For
it.
everyone involved.
Yes, you said it.
That's the most legitimate connection, I think, to harbingers. It's like, oh, yeah, that's a real thing. And it like doesn't have to be like, oh, you tapped into the fairy world because we don't mourn our dead here, so it must be something magical. Fucking harbingers. So I think harbingers are bullshit, guys. Is my point.
I'm with you. I think I'm leaning towards that as well. I
Bad
think it's
omens.
just
I'm with
bad
you.
omens. Yeah, totally. The black
Sure.
cat thing, I do not believe in
Superstition.
for a second.
100%.
Oh, you have a
There is no universal monster team of. All right, we got Banshee, we got Mothman, we got the Black-Eyed Kid. They're gonna come in. They're gonna warn you. If you see them, you're in trouble.
guys. I
Just
think we
by
have
virtue of you seeing them.
a
Like,
comic book
we're
idea on our
interviewing
hands.
for the team. Are we scared? We're like, no. So we're gonna do individual movies for the Harbingers. Each one gets
Yes,
their own movie. We
and we'll
already
bring
did
them all
Mothman.
together.
And for the Harbinger,
Harbingerverse.
The extended Harbinger verse. I like it. Let's fucking do it.
EH, the extended Harbingerverse.
Listen,
Wow, we're doing it.
all I want to
can't
know is,
believe
are
it.
we gonna get Richard Gere to reprise his role?
I
hope
fucking hope not. With John, dude.
Yeah, but this
his
time
performance in
he's
that
putting-
movie is awful.
this time he's
Yes.
putting on the fucking suit.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's gonna
Put
be
on the
in the
Mothman.
Mothman suit, playing a human though.
Yeah, and he's only getting scale. I'm not paying
Yeah, no, fuck that. He's not getting his rate.
He's not getting his rate.
We ain't paying him his full. We're gonna be like, no, we saw Mothman Prophecies. We are not paying you your rate. I don't care if you've been in good movies like Pretty Woman.
You
and-
perpetuated some false ass bullshit.
I know some Hollywood suits told you to do this, but goddamn, dude, you just ruined your career.
He got producer points somewhere, so fuck
Yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm sure of it. But
We might have to cut this, but I would like to know: do you guys think that like Richard Gere is actually a Ratatouille situation, but with a gerbil?
was a little gerbil hiding under his
What does he
hairpiece.
control him for? Because Ratatouille, so like Remy the rat controls the chef just for when he cooks, right? So like, what is the gerbil doing for Rich? Is it during like sex,
No, it's everything.
helping
Acting.
him out? It's everything. Okay, all right.
It's just
can't act-
controlling
Yes.
him.
Then yes, actually yes, I do think so.
It's like that little alien in the head in Men in Black, in one of those
yeah.
Men in Black movies. Just pulling
First one.
pulling all the
First one.
controls,
Yep, great.
driving him like a
Love
bobcat.
that. Driving him like a fucking bobcat.
Yeah, what do they call that
That's right.
steering where it's like two poles and you turn right by going like this and left like
Two-pole
that?
steering.
Oh, the
yeah.
Stairmaster.
Two-pole steering. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's
never-
like calling the biz. Yeah, Just AKA the Stairmaster, the two-pole steering. Yeah.
The fucking
You know, I got my
cross-country
Class A two-pole steering license, and I actually got it during quarantine. And it's actually pretty easy to get. You know, you just like take a course online, and yeah, I suggested it.
There's like one of those flight kits that you can get for your computer where it's just the two poles and you hook them up.
I actually have it. It's set up. It's just set up just right off the screen. It's right over there.
You got Tractor Simulator that you use it for?
Yeah, I use it on my Switch now pretty often. My snowshoeing game.
Yeah, cross country simulator.
Cross country skiing. Yeah. It's sick. It's pretty sick.
I'm into it.
It's like 3 a.m. and your wife's like, "Come to bed," and you're like, "No, I gotta get this town cleared out."
Yeah, I gotta get some more miles in cross country, please.
Gotta finish excavating
Fresh
this hill.
powder. It's so you don't understand. I can go so much faster on fresh powder. I gotta get these miles in.
Man, I missed you boys.
Yeah, I miss you guys too.
Good.
Missed you too.
Bullshit
This
as harbingers are.
Yeah. So I think we're all kind of on the same agreement when it comes to harbingers. It's just a thing that people use to justify traumatic events happening, I guess. That's what it seems like.
It's like those
I don't
old
believe 'em.
wives' tales. Where
I have a
like,
black cat. I haven't died.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of wives' tales, a lot of folklore. That's like the ones I found were all like based in folklore, you know? And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, but like, are you really seeing like basically death come upon you before you die? No.
Ooh, that sounds like
not.
a sex tape.
Oh yeah, actually, fuck, I think it was. Let me. Close
Yeah,
that real quick.
fucking ghost cocky.
Yeah.
I had to explain to my girlfriend a couple weeks ago what bukkake is.
Had to. He said.
Yeah,
had
we were
to explain.
we were playing Quiplash with a couple people, and somebody put bukkake, and she's like, "What is that?" And I made the mistake of showing her the video instead of explaining it to her.
Acting it out.
Yeah, and acting it out. And she was not amused by it at all. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there cracking up because bukkake's fucking hilarious.
I mean, hilarious isn't the first word I'd choose. And
Well,
also,
you see
you gotta ease in with donut photos, bro. You gotta start. You can't just jump right into the Japanese culture.
Oh, like frosted donuts?
You gotta show a nice honey glaze.
Oh,
And start there and be like, "This looks
funny.
good, huh?"
so fucking gross.
Why is that gross? Why is a donut gross, but a bukkake video is hysterical?
Because I'm just imagining a donut covered in cum.
Ugh.
Like, that's gross. I don't want that. A human covered in cum is a little bit different.
What is going on here?
Thank you
What
for
is
listening
going
to the
on?
final episode of the Beastie Boys podcast.
We'll bring you another
So
episode, never.
They broke a main in
Wow.
front of my house, right? And it's freezing outside. And there's these 8 to 10 dudes all soaked and cold and angry. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, "Oh, my house is warm. I wonder, I
I'm gonna warm up."
don't want to, buy them all coffee, but maybe I could invite them in. Maybe let them dry off."
I got this sweet leather couch right here that we can all hang out on.
Oh no! I don't like this at all.
I
Casting
don't know why.
couch.
Why is my go-to voice that? And also, like, why did I give that to Jarvis? Why is that Jarvis's voice?
It's spread to
Why
me
is
like a
that Jarvis
virus. Hey,
seducing the worker's voice. Like, "Oh, boys, you gotta get out of that wet cold. Hey, you know how much Bigfoot erotica's on Amazon?"
whoa, is there any Bigfoot bukkake? I didn't look into that. I'm gonna have to do a little extracurricular searching after this episode's over.
For the laugh.
Yeah. Oh, it's strictly for research. I would never look that stuff up if not for the podcast.
Oh, sure.
Oh, my
of course.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know about you guys, but I really need a donut right now. Bye.
All right. Bye, everybody. I hope you listen next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you for
I guess
listening to the final
The
episode.
other two are so
of-
rude, they can't say
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you for listening to the final
said bye,
episode
right?
of the
Oh, I
Beastie
didn't hear you
Boys
say it.
podcast.
Yeah, it was a fun
okay,
run.
bye
We got 11 episodes, so that was cool. But bye-bye.
Decaf left, regular right. Decaf left, regular right. It's very challenging work.